Aha! There it is. Beautiful. So this is chapter 1. We worked on this yesterday. It is 2,588 words. Okay, is this working? Beautiful. Heck yeah. Very pleased with this. We are now on to chapter 2. And I think what I should do now is read the previous iteration of chapter 2 aloud. This is draft number 5 of chapter 2. And I'm going to read through all of it without editing it, and then I'll copy and paste it into draft number 6, and then I'll read it again and make edits as I go. And I think I should select music that has no lyrics for this particular thing. Chapter 2, Rotted. Those who have failed to master all virtues become Iragi, cursed to wander Asia forevermore. Those barely above these cursed spirits are the sinful, who shall atone in service to us. Except with unabridged Talgera written by Autark Morale. Lamb swung her cleaver into the carcass, splitting meat from bone. The parts her superiors deemed unfit for their own consumption she cut into thin rands, slicing around barnacles and algae in easy, thoughtless motions. The blue of the giant rough scale was bright against its dull flesh. It was hard to think in this cacophony of swearing dim lights and bloody rotted scents. Grime choked the water. The best that could be said for this fetid place was that it wasn't lonely. No amount of time in the kitchens could make her used to it, not even if she lived to Leviathan swim again. Almost done now. The fat she set aside for rendering, the prime cut she slowed down for, face forward. She wasn't to finish preparing it, but she wasn't to make things easy for the higher-ranking servants. Ones so high up they mightn't be servants at all. The exalted didn't want the sinful touching their food, at least until the final stages, but it was the sinful they let clear their filters, and it was the sinful they let do the butchering. Close to done, just a few prime cuts left. She couldn't afford to tear one, so she took some time to rest her forearms. Clam looked longingly at the clean section in the upper left, where people wove garathi out of kelp and assembled neat platters, sectioned off from the rest of the lot by clear glass. No blood or rot there? Arachno fond of rotten meat, same what parasites like to swim in. Here the voices had to put bioluminescent markings on their hands to speak through the murk, and if they could communicate clearly no matter the raucous. If Clam got promoted one more time, she'd be one of them. It was a miracle she wasn't one already, but one of her former masters was fond of her work as a seamstress. Her arms were rested enough. Back to work. The condenser on her countertop's right whined in the effort of sucking in stray particles and blood. Cloaked already? Eyes take it, she'd cleaned it out just an hour ago. The condenser's harsh whine had startled her. She'd torn one of the prime cuts, the edges gone ragged. She swallowed it covertly without chewing and focused on her motions, hoping the enforcers just saw a regular servant at her station. She couldn't bear emotion. Beads clattered and a small gong rang twice. It was an ennobled, second highest in all the castes. Clam get focused on her work on the given chair of the carcass beneath, not bothering to bow while the servants kowtowed like polyps retracting into their sheaths. She couldn't bear promotion either. It went quiet as could be here. No voices, no sharpening metal, only the hum and screech of condensers interrupted the heady silence. Was to her ears. Didn't last long. Nothing good did. As soon as the other servants straightened, the din resumed. All thuds and cracks and whines and bone snapping. The ennobled in black and grey came over to her, sentient over their nose, veiled over their eyes to keep the sight pure, as the Lacanora put it. Couldn't tell if it was a man or woman or one of the Aldor. They swam above her. If she swam above them, she'd be sent to discipline. They wore gloves, of course, but didn't want to touch the accursed thieves and murderers. Kalam bowed and flashed them a grin, showing them all their stained, cracked teeth, looking them straight in the eyes past their grey blade. They intoned their words in an Orakan's monotone, speaking in accent this gentler. One of your former masters requested that you be moved to Koan Ark to aid an invalid, a diplomat of 9 years named Junara Lo Kaida. Diplomats were the least rotten of the lot, but it was all about teaching their ways to the lesser, or trying to extort resources. If he was an invalid, then she might have it better. He wouldn't have the energy to maim her, for one. She might even be able to sneak out to the gardens late at night, or one of the museums filled with wearing trinkets. The ennobled's voice went strained, unused to shouting through the din of whirring condensers and the pleasant cuts in work. Did you hear me? Please, put down the knife. Clam waved it around theatrically before setting it into its bone holder. I heard it. You will be on trial for a period of 1 full cycle of wax and wane to see if you can adequately replace Dar's previously handler. You are to guide him to his lessons and extracurriculars, prepare with his food, liaise with the medical officers, in addition to your typical duties as a servant. Your former master told me you were well practiced in aiding the day-to-day life when exalted, and I trust you will do a splendid job. The servant beside her shot a dagger glance filled with envy and flicked his head fin. Guide him why? He's an invalid, not brain dead. Hi, Dr. Sirloin! 7 stream streak, that's amazing. Thank you so much. She tucked her tail beneath the countertop's hollow and rested her elbows on its dead coral plating, keeping her eyes on them. Orakin hated extended eye contact, especially with fellow Orakin, but they couldn't bear to look into the eyes of a monster either. He is blind, and the poor child has a non-studied version of mind blindness. The medical term is Wait, I can't pronounce my own word, hold on a sec. Orakahalalaxe. We call it non-standard because he is set on becoming a diplomat, despite the disease putting a wall between him and others' intentions. Typically, the disease inflicts apathy, and those inflicted refuse to speak unless they want directions or food. He insists on befriending others, trying to rather. She winced. Not so much free time after all, and people as sick as that, weren't they cursed? It was what happened when you tried to get into a caste you weren't worthy of. At least she known better than not to accept her place, and at least she'd get paid. Paid far too well for her rank. She squinted, trying to parse out information through the ennoble's real and stillness. Why am I getting a good gig so soon after janking up my last one? They crossed their arms. One sleeve fell down to reveal Bandit Eshmir. Not a woman then? The arms were bare? Oh wait, I messed up here. I'll have to fix this. Oh no, you'll be paid the same for your new job as your current one. I don't imagine you'll have a tough time here, even if the previous individual quit his job as Dallas handler. He found a young, blind invalid, I quote, too much trouble. Already, she liked the bugger more than she should. Janara was an exalted, and just because he made it hard for another exalted didn't mean he wasn't made of the same fetid stuff. Am I getting more information? I don't know how to care for a kid, let alone a sick one. I don't want him to die on me. I'd be fired for one. Clamsa, your old master told me no more than you know now. It's as if she wants you to fail in your essential task. And why, if the child has caused her trouble, I want him to keep on doing it. A trace of a breathy Ahax accent came into their voice. Native to this house, then? It is reassuring to see some trace of personhood through the blank face and flat voice. She's a cruel master, expects everything done immediately, and despises you if you fail. She insisted that I talk to you in this current cursed place too. Ugh, wish I'd brought Kelatark pods. They rubbed their nose through the veil. I'll be smelling this for weeks. A voiceless accidentally brushed against the kish, leaving a small stain on their immaculate robes. They didn't notice. She grinned. As for the job, where to, and when perhaps, how do I actually care for him? With all the information you've given me, you might as well have asked me to take apart a Leviathan with a rusty fork. I'm not permitted to stay here for longer. In 2 days, that's on Aki Iridiri if they haven't taught you arithmetic. Meet me in Akshai Ark at the second gong. I'll give you more information about adequate care. I still don't know why she assigned a Surin to one so needy. Clean up after the final gong, say your goodbyes to your fellows, and go to Koan Ark, room 23. Dad will be expecting you. And trade this token for clean attire before you spend time with a sickly child. He'll catch something. They tossed Clam a token before rubbing their nose again and fleeing from the kitchens. Their robes caught in a few dirtied areas before they opened the door, and a blissful blast of fresh water swept into the room. The servants went back to their usual chatter as soon as the ennobled was through. Clam finished carving the meat a few ticks before the evening gong went off, slices arranged neatly on a giant bone platter, Rand's unceremoniously popped in a giant container, and the kittens cloyed beyond belief. A barnacle clung to the countertop. Not her problem, the next servant at the station would take care of it. Clam would have cleaned it while younger, but now she knew better than to be late. She wanted to say her goodbyes, so there was no time to waste. A job out of here, the fellow Soren said, beside her with an Ahrax accent. Safest one to had, if the most had it. I don't have time to talk. Take care, eat your food even if it tastes like mine so sickness don't claim you. Don't talk to anyone besides yourself, and only work well if you want promotion. She decided to look for Ribbon. The Orakan had saved her when she was bleeding out and had tried to give her blood even though their blood was neurotoxic as they were. She tolerated this one. The rest, with their creepy teeth and dull voices and slimy skin and how they thought they were fit to rule over the whole world, she wanted to stuff them in a giant condenser with sharp-edged barnacles and see what happened. She only found a brawl over some spare fruit and some kids playing hoops. Maybe check the fancier kitchens, just in case Ribbon was working the night shift. Viewing and smaller Surin. Children were malnourished probably, worked sectioned off there, all of it kept clean by a powerful condenser, sealed off from the rest of the lot by glass. They wove kelp and polyps together to make intricate pastries and rolls. A few Orakin with caps on their talons joined them, keeping their distance, taking advantage of the clean water that didn't smell of meat and rot and stinking up the place with their strange scents. None of them were Ribbon. She didn't find Rand, Pearl, or Rothwim either. She'd given them some of her spare blankets as she was steady enough to get by without them, and they looked more bone than alive. No one she recognized. It had been years since she'd stopped for good conversation. With no one left to talk to, she cleaned up as best as she could. Their rooms weren't exactly equipped with House Kairos' finest. The sand was more like grit. Alien mermaids? Yup. So, like this. I drew this at the start of the stream. This is a Surin, one of the species I made up. They have 4 arms, don't need to sleep. because they're like real life dolphins in that sense. So yeah. Oh wait, need to fill in that corner there with blue. Do you like their design? We've also got Azrin here, one of the main characters. Little guy looks like a lizard. Oh yeah, they do. They do look like a lizard. Lizard, dolphin, mermaid. And then we've got Azrin here. Or like a really weird shark. Shark with arms. So that's the work. Azrin looks nice. Reminds you of a Mahi Mahi. What's that? Let me look that up. Mahi Mahi. Oh, whoa. That's a beautiful fish. Dolphin fish, Mahi Mahi. Oh, that's beautiful. I love the colors. Look at that. It's extraordinary. I love that. I'm leaving this tab open because I like it. Let's close this tab. I don't need it. Okay, and wait, that's draft 6. This is draft 5. So I'm reading through draft 5 at the moment. For the tail, consider the tail of a thresher shark. They use their tails like whips. Ooh, that would be a cool design for the Soren. So what I could do here is go to this place here. Decrease the brush size by a whole lot. And then the tail would go, I'm guessing it would curve around here like so. Wait, no, that's too big. And then what do thresher sharks look like? Hold on a sec. Thresher sharks, I think they have a specific shape to their tail. Yes. So I see like that. Very cool. So let's go and it will reduce drag and you can add a unique weapon for the species. Yeah, I really like the idea for that. And then let's go to this layer here on top. Select this one. We want to add some shading now. Nice. And then we get the gouache blender out. Very good. Oh, I think I need to erase some of this. Yeah, I need to erase this a little bit to add more contrast. One of your favorite books uses a big-ass tuning fork for a weapon. Oh, I love that. That is so fun. What book was that? I think I might like to read it. So there we go. I like this. They have a tail for that they can use to stun prey. Forearms, very dexterous. And little fins for decoration. Alright, let's go back to draft number 5. The City That Would Eat the World by John Biss. Book 1 of More Gods and Stars. Alright, that seems very cool. So let me get up the city that would... Oh, typo, that would eat stars. He still hasn't announced the next book though. Oh no! Okay, looks like it's right here. So I will... Wait, that's all right. Names. Here's draft 5. Very good. With no one left to talk to, she cleaned up as best as she could. Their rooms weren't exactly equipped with House Carros's fineness. The sand was more like grit, the perfume that should have been there was overpowered by salt and the reek of Arakan pheromones, and the sponges were half-rotted, scraggly things that did not look out of place in the trash. At least the brushes had most of their bristles. Clam threw her old clothes in a weighed-down net serving as a garbage bag, or treasure bag for those who weren't picky. She'd made plenty of use of bags like that at the start, before she'd learned how to hide her belongings. She went to her quarters, a cramped hole in the wall lined with half-rotted tikkun. An Empyrean guard clad in heavy metal accepted the token and gave her 2 clean sets of clothing with lockers beside. One to carry, one to change into. She'd get more clothing once she settled into her new job and sent a request. The Arakan were bastards, but they dressed fine. Clam should have asked for makeup, maybe false teeth, make herself presentable, but she was more than some dolt for them to gaze at. She plastered on a servile grin and hefted her belongings, swam up, out of the servants' arks, and into the crystal clear waters for the first time in months. She kept her eyes averted, fixed on the traceries and tiles beneath their fins. Beautiful. She hated how beautiful it was here. The servants had some power in their ugly domain, in the blood-stained kitchens and workrooms. The exalted were uncomfortable. Here, in this glimmering world illuminated by a bright light, it was all theirs. She must have brushed past 10 or 12 beaded doorways marking new arcs, and got turned around at least 5 times. Ooh, that's also a draw for me. I love deep world building like that. I love world building a ton. But thank you for the heads up, I appreciate it. But for me that's a huge draw too. Her tail ached like a boulder had rolled on top of it. All day was getting to her. She had to interrupt a few voices delivering messages or recarving the stone engravings to make sure she'd get there in time. Your world is made of deep world building in mind. Best friends. Heck yeah. Ooh, you're a writer too? Nice. Ooh, awesome. I have a Discord if you'd like to chat more about your world. Hold on a sec. So if I get up, trying to write. I have a bot called Sprinto, which lets you do writing sprints together. So if you'd like, we could do... So feel free to, if you'd like to write together, we could do that. And feel free to put me on in the background, use me as inspiration to write. There's no pressure to pay attention. Also, name is Ans. Alex, if you want an actual name. My real name is Ori. Okay, awesome. So once you join, I'll have to manually verify you because I need to prevent spam bots and such from taking over the server. So just tell me when you join and then I'll go in and verify you. What would a job be like when an exalted she didn't want to slowly roast over lava? A job that she kept for a while. Something steady in these beautiful sweet waters away from the reek. Alex's pseudonym, heads up? Got it. She throttled that thought. As long as she didn't want for more than she had, she couldn't be crushed when she didn't get it. Another gong rang out, the 5th and final. Damn, she didn't want to be fired before she even got to the kid. She was in the right arc at least. A few minutes of staring at complex Iraqan writing and she found the room. Clem took a breath and rapped on the door. It scraped open slowly and in spurts. Just how heavy was it? She slammed it to the side with a resonant crack, lighter than she'd thought. The Iraqan inside was a lanky thing who'd hunched over and put his hands to his ears. Trembling slightly, he straightened his back and his face split into a wide, toothy grin. The pink of his mouth was visible between missing fangs. His webbed ears open, the things huge against his narrow face. He'd be excruciatingly thin even if he was half his height. As tall as she was, she thought he might stab him too if he so sneezed. He folded his long hands together. Almost helmless. Had he removed them? He swayed and hummed a bit before speaking. Breakfast burrito? Oh, nice! You are in. Awesome. Okay, let me get open the Discord. There you go. And head to settings. Where are the settings? Hold on. Must find them. There they are. And then I go to roles. Verified. Click on members. Add member. There you go. Okay, you should be added to the server now. Excellent. Feel free to select your color in rules and roles, so you can... And the rules are quite simple, there's not a lot to read. So you should be able to type now in the server. Welcome! Oh nice, you already selected your color, you're green now. Lovely. Ooh, is that a Hollow Knight profile I see? So the writing server isn't that active because I've mostly been streaming through the Spire. But I will definitely do my best to liven it up, try and gather more writers. Sure! Thank you for the lurk, Janisso. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. It's your favorite game series? I think I know why. It's an amazing game. I've watched a playthrough of it. It looks absolutely incredible. It really does. He folded his long hands together, almost toneless. Had he removed them? He swayed and hummed a bit before speaking. Greetings, I am Gennaro Lokoida, and I have had a very good day. How have the currents favored you? She blinked. Thank you for the kind greetings, but the currents have brought me crap as usual. Wait, Multi Brad? Hello! Thank you so much for the gifted sub! Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I love your comment, Ans. Thank you so much, Brad. How are your challenges going? And oh, hold on a sec. Let me shout out MultiBradX. Shout out MultiBradX. There we go. It worked. MultiBradX does amazing challenges on super high difficulties in Slay the Spire, and he's super chill. Oh, nice! You're starting challenges today. That's amazing. And oh, I drew this. I drew this today. So she is a Surin, a dolphin-like creature who's one of the species of alien mermaids in my world. Starter deck only. Whoa! Which character are you going to try and do that with? I'm really glad you love it. Thank you. And then we've also got Azrin here, one of the main characters of the book, though I renamed him to Junara, so he's Junara now. Got this cool tail. Alright. And to give some context, thank you, I'm glad you like it. Ooh, Necromancer could— oh, you're right, because— thank you. I'm glad you love it. Yeah, I think Necromancer could be very good because if you upgrade the bodyguard, you have tons of scaling. And you have damage scaling and block scaling at the same time. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. And to give context for what's going on here, a servant, Clam, has been assigned to take care of a young diplomat called Junara. And Clam is very confused why she's been promoted to a new job, for reasons that will come apparent quite soon. And Junara is blind. Another pause before he spoke. I am very sorry to hear that. Oh, my sorries, I forgot to greet you as a guest. So this fight is a game you wish you could get into, but you are too dumb for resource management. It's very tricky, but I think you could get the hang of it. He bowed like branch coral snapping, sharp and fast. His braids moved forward and slapped him in the face. He winced. Wasn't mind blindness a complete lack of interest in others, not caring for them because they couldn't tell what others were thinking? He struck her as awkward, not soulless. She sighed and set her bags on the orchid tiling, stretching out the kinks in her shoulder and back. Would you like to weave the chevet? I know you are supposed to be my servant, but I don't believe in them, and I would like it if you could be my guest instead. 11 ropes in alternating colours hung from the metal piping, sticking out of the slate wall. Junara tugged her sleeve and guided her to the chevet. She almost shoved him off, but he was careful not to touch her skin. Orakan's skin was toxic to the touch. The chevet is here. As a guest, you should weave a pattern to it. Most choose a glyph of luck or fortune, but you are free to choose anything you would like. Thank you, Brad. Have a wonderful day. Feel free to go. It's why you love Hollow Knight. The entire game is just F you, get good. She'd done her fair share of ropework and embroidery, so she could improvise. As she wove, she inspected her new charge. The noble had said Junara was 9, but he was almost as tall as her already, and his cheeks were hollow, no baby fat. He looked his age on second glance, though. It was the shyness and brightery of fish clips in his hair that gave it away. He was swimming back and forth and fluffing his hands like no one was watching, his truly waving like antenna, that indelible lopsided grin only widening. He didn't stink of nut, like the other Rakans. He smelt of nothing, like a Surin. She'd forgotten diplomats were like that. The operation to remove their venom also removed their scent. Clam had overreacted by preparing to shove him off. He didn't seem a threat, but she could have misjudged him. Perhaps this was all a ploy to make her think she was safe before he sent her to discipline for being lax. Some kids were sadistic. He had an Arakan's large nose, and it was wide and flat with a light smattering of freckles across it. A thick veil covered his eyes. That's an odd veil. Why do you wear it? He continued pacing and moving his hands in that stick out her way. Why do you wear it? He repeated. Light hurts me. I like the peace this gives me. He pronounced the I in a long, protracted way, she noticed. Like I instead of I. He stopped pacing, and he held his hands to his chest as they stopped twitching. The smile vanished. Oh, did you see that? I'm very sorry. Zori told me to stop because it makes people uncomfortable and is sinful. He said, we Orakan should constantly practice restraint or else we are no better than our blood. Zori's a bastard. You moving your hands doesn't hurt me and it seems to make you happy. Truly, you do not mind? His voice quivered, hands so tightly clenched, pale of brown around the knuckles. The feeling that Zori had nearly gotten the kid's spirit for good. It'd take a while to come back. Maybe she could help. Clam shook her head. Get an exalted spirits back and she'd soon be maimed. No, she said coolly, and finished dropping the space chords. It formed a wonky glyph for luck. I don't mind. So long as you don't bother me, you can do anything you like. You'll leave me alone? This is brilliant. Thank you for my soul. Thank you very, very much. Thank you dearly. He bowed again. This time he'd responded quickly, without the pause she'd come to respect from him. What are your duties? He asked, shrinking away from her. What were you told to do to me? Gods, what had they done to him for him to be afraid of a Karen's cursed servant? Typical servant stuff, bring you food, help you change into those stupid complex outfits, clean your room. Other than that, bring you to lessons and medical appointments. You'll have to tell me where to go because I'm in the dark. They briefed me for just 10 minutes. Oh, I've memorized the house's layout and can travel to classes on my own. Less work for me. He smiled again. This sounds stop. Have you finished the chevet? She nodded, then realized she'd made a fool of herself. Nodding wouldn't explain a damn thing to him. I have. Oh, I made this for you. He gestured to a lopsided array of pillows and blankets tangled on the floor. It is a bed for sleeping. He lifted a finger to his chin. Do Soren like blankets, or need to sleep as often? I'll take the antechamber. She didn't want to sleep like an exalted. And this is something I have to change, because Soren don't need any sleep. So, she's not. But they do need rest. So, I'm going to need to change this part of the chapter. His ears drooped, and it was a while before he spoke. But I have been there, and it is very cold. Please take the blankets with you, at least. She glared at him. It wasn't like he could see it anyway. Why are you doing this? Don't you have your sacred order to follow? Yes, I am a diplomat. It is my job to be cordial. He didn't say any more, like it was obvious why a poor blood would let a dirty servant sleep in the same room. The boy yawned, and his shoulders slumped. Please excuse me, but I need to sit for a moment. He drifted to a seat made out of the lower shell of a clam and fell face first into a pile of cushions. I am sorry that, I should have... He was interrupted by another yawn, and muttered a few more incomprehensible syllables before his muscles lost all their tone, and his chest rose and fell with the slow, steady breath of the dreaming. Clam pried him out of the shell, lifting both him and the octopus plush he was holding out with aching arms. She might have sprained something with all that swimming. Good thing he was light as thread. She tucked him into his hammock, and his tail almost hung out the end. He was the same as all the rest of them, no matter what he looked like, no matter how sweet his veneers seemed. But she'd be fine if she damaged him, so that's why she had to move him. She cleaned up the mess he'd made with the cushions and blankets. That tangle was more in nest feels than a bed, and he kept a blanket for herself, the coarsest one. The rest she dumped onto the boy without ceremony. Swim away, she commanded herself. Don't feel guilty. Gods, she muttered, and went back and arranged the duvets neatly, like he was some nervous servant kid who just arrived in Kairos. After a longing glance at the heated stone beneath Junara's hammock, she swam to the dark antechamber and hung her bags on the rickety shelves. She'd unpack tomorrow? Slumping onto the scratchy bedding, she counted the number of circles on the geometric mosaic above her. 12. Had been 14 the last time she was in a place like this. It was a stupid superstition among the servants. Less circles than last time meant bad luck. Couldn't be any worse than it already was. She stuck her tongue out to the ceiling and swept the blanket Junara had given her beneath her tail so the stuffing wouldn't rub against her like shark hide. She started to smile at the comfort the blanket gave her, but clamped her grin down. No matter how kind he seemed, he'd be just as rotted as the others. Okay, and that is chapter 2. And it's quite a long one, I think nearly 4,000 words. So we need to go here. And then we need to bring it into draft number 6. And then we need to edit it again. Well, yes again, but... Okay, let's jump up there. Chapter 2, rotted. There we go. So, Anne, what are your thoughts on the chapter so far? You haven't even started the first draft, LMAO? Yeah, I've been working on this novel for a long time. Can I ask who your main character is? I've got 3 main characters. Junara, Clam, and Lumen. Let me see if I have some art of Lumen. File open. Should have some. There she is. Okay. Here's Lumen. You don't know enough of the book to even comment at the moment? I got it. But this is Lumen. She's Orakin like Azrin. So they have not similar coloration, but they have similar builds. Okay, so... Yes, indeed. So there's quite a bit that needs to change, mostly the dialogue, because because of how I wanted to deepen the world building a bit, and I'm wondering, why would a dolphin-like creature be able to speak the same language as, say, an Arakan, like Lumen and Azran? So why would Surin, who probably speak in clicks and pops, be able to communicate? And so I figured that they would communicate with like a tapped out Morse code. So the long taps and then swipes. So there would be different meanings for a long swipe, a short swipe, swipe with lots of pressure, swipe with light pressure, stuff like that. Your main character is still in development because he is magic engineering hell. So feel free to brainstorm with me if you'd like about your main characters. Alright, so I think, oh, hold on a sec, I need to move this in. And then here's another thing that I need to change. You could add the tail snap in the conversation. Ooh, that's a really good idea. Definitely going to do that. Let me go to editing notes, keeping track of changes. Add a tail snap from Clam. Add a tail snap from Clam the conversation. Also introduce the Morse code conversation. The Morse code like. I think it's called an auxiliary interline. I misspelled that horribly. Yes, auxiliary interline. I think that's spelled correctly. Basically, your main character is a mix of Spider-Man and the ODM gear from Attack on Titan. Ooh, that's cool. So let's go back to here. And I think that the voices no longer have to add bioluminescent markings on their hands. And then I think I'm just going to cut this paragraph because without there's no segue. I'm just going to cut this. It's a long chapter anyway. I'll explain the voices later. And then if you're wondering about the Ice Take It here, this is a reference to the Orakan Supreme Judgment, where their ancestral home was taken over by ice because of global cooling. And pretty much the entire planet is cooling down, and winters are getting longer. So they have a curse of ice take it, ice take you, etc. Okay. Okay. And I think I also need to change this. No, I don't. And then... His entire idea is that he's controlling various apparatus that lets him manipulate a bunch of wires to fight. His combat archetypes are control and movement. Ooh, fascinating. Okay. Speaking in... lightly... I think that they would just the Orakan would just expect other people to learn the Orakan language with the light X accent, with the light breathy X accent. Did you hear me? Please put down the knife. Okay, then this is where it needs to change. She held out one of her 4 hands, waiting. Wait, she should probably bow. She needs to bow first. Bowing deeply. She held out one of her 4 hands. She held out one of her 4 hands. And then I probably need to just avoid exposition here, and because this is normal to her, she won't think of how different it is. That maybe she'll think she wished Orakin could understand. Oh, she can't actually speak her own language, I think. So she won't think that. She wouldn't think that. She held out one of her full hands, waiting for the ennobled to take it so they could communicate. Their grimace was visible even through the veil, but they held out their hand for her to tap. She began speaking, and I think she's going to view this as speaking instead of communicating. She began speaking, taps and swipes. This language wasn't as efficient as Orakin, as you had to type out each letter. Your current version of had him shooting wires with his wrists and feet. With 2 will be controlled with wire shooters on his back. He has 2 wheels on his hands that unspool in his hands like whips. His magic revolves around electricity, making him able to control the way wires contract and such, allowing him to move midair without sending wires about. Ooh. I love this. I just have the moon's grant magic, and what? Yeah, the moon's grant magic. It's a little simpler. And I think I'm not going to highlight it. You heard it, she said. So she's just going to view this as speaking. So I'm not going to put her speech in italics or anything. So, because your system is deeply rooted in science, since you are an effing nerd. I love that. Excellent. You will be on trial for a period of 1 full cycle of wax and wane to see if you can adequately replace that previous handler. Okay. Oh no, and I need to remove this, because if she does this, and then the tail snub. Nice. Oops. Also, it is completely unnecessary, but he put a flash-wielding apparatus on the tip of his thumb so he can weld 2 pieces of wire together and hold it out in front of him and Orifarm. Excellent. And then I need to... No diminishment came, but she still wins. And I needed to change this up because it was she, and then she. So I changed it to she, and then no, and then clam. The first words beginning of the sentence. No diminishment came, but she still wins. And then I need to change her dialogue as well. Hmm. Alright. They crossed their arms. One sleeve fell down to reveal Vantage Schmidt. Either a man or an Aldor then? Oh no, you'll be paid the same for your new job as your current one. I don't imagine you'll have a tough time here, even though the previous individual quit his job as Dart's handler. He found a young, blind, invalid, I quote, too much trouble. Also, unnecessary detail, his magic only affects metal wires because normal strings are braided, which messes with elastic control, and most other things have too much volume, making them much more mana intensive. Ooh. I like the limitations on magic. I feel like adding limitations to magic makes it feel more grounded, and also prevents it from being a Deus Ex Machina. And then, oh, we need to fix this. Why is that not going? Okay. Probably need to do this, and then there we go, now it's properly indented. And then I need to look up and then I need and his metal wires are galvanic anchors, making him a bane for lightning mages. That's fun. So Clem originally had a phonetic accent, but because she's typing out her words... Also, by technicality, one of your side characters is a cancer mage. Cancer mage. I have not come across that concept before. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this and remove every instance of tar, changing it back to 2. And then change this to U as well. Image to Imagine Deadpool. Ah, that makes a lot of sense. There we go. Because she's typing out her words, I don't think she would have. Wait, I can just replace. Find and replace. She is canonically trans at a transition. She used a slightly scuffed method. Ooh, what sort of method? Oh, oops. Let me fix that. Asia. And Toshia. Okay. And then I need to change the... Yawn. Okay. Asia, AR, Yawn. Yawn, Asia, and then AR. Okay, got it. So we've changed all of the phonetic dialogue to it's now been removed. Basically, she willingly got cancer by stepping into one of the regions of the moon that gets blasted by solar radiation, then cultivated the cancer in very specific ways to grow herself a new body. Whoa. That's metal. Super cool concept for this. I love that. That is a very cool concept for a character. I love her. Okay, so there's also another change that I want to make, which is... I think... Hold on a sec. Wait a minute. I need to move this. Trans people generally become body mages. Oh, cool. Can you tell me more? Alright. So we've now edited it decently well. I don't think there's much that this needs to change beyond this. So I might go on to chapter 3. I think I might go on to chapter 3. It's the easiest way to transition. Heading to Lobster. And then we're going to be introduced to the third main character, Lumen. Yeah, 6,486 words so far. Pretty good. That's good headway. That's almost a tenth of the novel edited so far. The problem is, it's going to get harder as the novel goes on, because I'm fond of the beginning. It's just the middle that I don't think works nearly as well. Thank you, Ninja. Yes, I will be sending this to a developmental editor after I finish editing the novel as best I can by myself. Because I'm feeling... I know that I can edit out the mistakes on a line level most of the time. It's just that the plot... I'm worried that the plot just doesn't work, because even though it is mostly slice of life, I do still want there to be compelling plot threads. I want it to be thematically interesting. I want the characters to contrast with each other well. Things like that, and I'm not quite sure I've achieved that, even though I can do decent descriptions and work decently well on a paragraph level. Body magic is less turning into a monster and more body modification. So we're going to work on this. We're going to work on chapter 3 now. So this is draft number 5, yes. So what I'll do to simplify things is, first I will copy and paste it to... I think instead of reading it out twice. And we're going to edit as we read it. You got to go get dinner, that's all good. Oh, I don't have a lurk command just yet, but I do have a lurk redeem. So if you can submit, you can redeem the lurk thing. Like that, for 1 frost orb. And then I think what I should do is, oh, it became normal text, that's funny. Wait, I need to bring it back to Lobster. There you go, like that. But I should definitely add a lurk command. Oh, hydrate, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Oh, there's no cooldown on the hydrate thing. Okay, I have hydrated. Alright, chapter 3. And there's not too much to edit at the start, because the first 3 chapters have gone through so much editing already. So much already. But later chapters will definitely take a lot more work. They might in fact be scrapped entirely. I'll have to add new ones, things like that. Chapter 3, Exiled. One of the fabled Kafid family daughters has broken an Athkin, a very piece of the shattered moon Minos itself. The Kafid family now only has one sickly daughter to their name. Has Risuvai La San Kafid failed to produce adequate progeny? The Current's Workings, a weekly newspaper. The sight of a skeleton greeted Lumen Vasan Kafid, the waving strangled kelp, clear even through the proliferations of green and the imperfections in the carriage's glass. It had belonged to some grand felt beast, almost pecked clean of flesh, ribs pointed upwards as if in permanent entreaty to the obscured sun. The thin, pockmarked bones were much like the withered armors that sticks in prayer, and the head lay listless on the sand. She wanted to barge to the strangled kelp and take one of the perfect fangs for herself. Silver fin darted in and out of the ribs, perfect mirrors reflecting the surrounding green and other scroungers. They took sharp jabs at the remaining flesh, moving with needle alacrity. Few became tangled in the waving kelp before their slick scales loosened the plant's grasp. And hold on a sec, I think... oh no? Oh, look at how pretty the art is here! I want to draw like this. I'd be happy if I could draw as well as this, I think. And I think, yeah, that's the final one. So let's begin playlist again. By the numerous callouses on the bones, the beast had survived many battles, but it had swum into its demise, lured by the sweet rot of the previously lured. A lurch. One of the guards had finally untangled the Ramagotti pulling the carriage. They were fine beasts, heavily armoured, and they looked more of their adversary than a domesticated animal. The guard swam through the doors, shut them with a slam, and tugged off his mask. It dangled by his side, connected to the compressed lifeblood on his back by lengths of metal tubing. Position, he yelled, a trace of Davenhag's accent in his voice. The consigned straightened. Lumen's arm and back pulsed in pain. The carriage's movement only worsened it. Despite being accustomed to it, Mother had made sure of that. The pain was making her grow dull and nauseous. The band suppressing her magic dug into her wrists. When the guard took the time to triple check his tubing, she sped a quick glance back through the window. The beast had now grown faint. Even her acute vision could spot nothing. Her home city of Sanrio was now completely engulfed by the strangle kelp, lost to sight. And I think I need to rename this, because apparently Sanrio is the name of a company that sells Hello Kitty. So I'm going to rename it. Editing notes. Sanrio to something else. So I need to go here. Why is it not working? Hopefully this lets me go to it, because I have a dictionary of Orakan words. So we've got Kairos, and then what does San mean? Yeah, this isn't working, unfortunately. Let's go back. Hopefully this works. Pages, there we go. And then I can go to dictionary. This is a private website that I used to... Orakan Dictionary. I need to come up with a name for Sanrio that's new, that I like. I think they'd probably name themselves after a flower. Sanala, perhaps, and then San means something. San means something else. So Sanala, and then I need to, let's see, does San already have a meaning? Sano, good manners. The San, season. And then I need San to mean something. Probably it can mean myriad, I think. Do I already have a word meaning myriad? No, that's it. So Myriadala is the name of that guild. So let's rename it to... There we go. I like the name now. That's good. Her home city of Sanala was now completely engulfed by the strangle kelp, lost to sight. She stopped mourning the loss of her grand view. The beast couldn't have been that impressive to be lured here, killed like a common fish. Strangle kelp began as a harmless weed, easily cultivated, harmless if trimmed, decent tasting too. Once enough shut up to the faint lifeblood of the sky, it feasted on the air, choking the waters until they could nourish nothing. Lured by its rich scent, beasts asphyxiated, their death hastened by the fronds wrapping around their fins and blocking their gills. Its sweet perfume consecrated the dead. Following the reek of death, more felt tangled to their demise, and the strangle kelp thrived. It could kill even the grandest of things. She repositioned her gelled hair to hide her burned ear. A bold Sauron on the other side of the carriage smelled and mimicked coughing her hair with forearms, clearly mocking. The Sauron was a trader of sentience, marked with the brand of a cannibal. Lumen growled at her and belled her fangs. The Mal by Lumen's side flinched before they realized who she was growling at and inched closer, trembling. She'd always found the small creatures beautiful, as their blue skin looked to be dappled by sunlight. Their large black eyes engendered a maternal instinct. Lumen permitted the tiny mouth to cling to her. They had likely been exiled for neurosis. She would shove them away if they touched skin instead of clothing. Orakan like her could root at fragile things, other sentients included. What beautiful bandages you have, the cannibal said, flashing her teeth. Her chest was lavish with jewels and little else. Lumen remained silent. The guard with a spear might burn her again if she spoke of failure. She'd intended to give herself the power of a revenant without any of the rot, but the transfer had gone poorly. Moonminus's power remained staunchly contained, rolling in her blood. Its grace remained its alone. Let me add that. The cannibal looked at the shaking Mal by her side. Oh, don't you worry your head off, I won't eat you. The neurotic one's always bad luck. The Mal remained trembling. The bones of a raccoon make such excellent music and charms, don't they? Beautiful skills. The flesh goes straight to the wastebasket, as it should. Toxic. Lumen ignored her. Women like her aboard it. No doubt some pathetic attempt to be remembered, or an attempt to goad her into lashing out so the guard could electrocute her again. Unimportant things always slipped her mind. This woman would fade along with what seemed like everything else. Some days she felt reduced to pure rote, little more than knowledge of mathematics and medicine. Position, the guard yelled again. The other one seemed perfunctory. Let me change it to they. They hadn't said a word. She could have overpowered them both. Their muscles were pathetic compared to hers, even shriveled in sickness, but she couldn't risk further injury. She tried to straighten and found bile rose in her throat. The guard hefted his spear. Allow me to rest, she said, her usual imperious tone coming out as a mumble. Or else I will regurgitate acid next to your precious, decidedly corrodable prisoners. Surely they'll be filed if they perish. The guard jabbed her right with the artifact that burned her. There, that should knock you out. He was kind for a member of the Empyrean. He took all she had not to throw up next to the tiny Mal. Soren could rot, but she would not let that fragile thing perish. Her flinch had dislodged the bandages next to her burnt ear. She nudged her gelled hair over it, combing through it with her talons. I think the talons would actually be too sharp. No, they'd probably insist that she blunt them, so she can do this. No, but her talons have to be sharp in order for her to actually be able to fight in the upcoming scene. So careful to avoid tearing it with her talons. There we go. That's changed. The Soren continued. Did I misspell that? Is that? It's a verb of multiple oranges. So it can be used as a verb. See meaning and use. What? Purchase a subscription? Excuse me? Why? Your coif is your hairstyle? Okay, the arrangement of hair, verb, arrange attractively. Okay, I did use the word correctly, but I did misspell it. The Soren continued to coif non-existent hair with a despondent pout, clearly trying to entice the woman into slaughtering her. Did she want a quick death instead of interminable execution? Lumen would give her no such satisfaction. I've heard you're quite the brute. They say you just crushed it and dared to think it would become part of you. Lumen repressed a hiss. I ground it finally and ejected it into my carotid vein. She brought heat to the surface of her hand in an attempt to display her power. The flesh bubbled and the scales warped. Further injury? The magic could not reach beyond her body's confines, but it rolled in her blood. Useless, but at least she could give herself a quick death if the hierarchy decided to torture her. The Soren continued to goad her with rumors and acerbic jabs. And then I need to change this to Lumen, because otherwise it's unclear which pronoun is referring to. Lumen closed her eyes and slept, the woman's voice fading along with wakefulness. Her sleep was dreamless. And then I'm going to change Lumen to she here. She awoke as the carriage shook and the Mal clung to her burnt flesh. She growled at them and they quickly backed away. It's just some five girl, the guard said. I'll get them before you can blink. Lumen blinked at him. He didn't notice, too busy attaching the mask. Her muscles had attenuated due to lack of exercises. The nurse had forbidden her from exertion and described her usual proposed routine as lethal. As he had said, they were just some five girl. Should be easy enough to dispose of, even in her state. She could also do with some fresh meat. She'd had enough of the ferments they gave to the sick. I trained with the Empyrean, she suggested, careful not to give commands. She loathed leading to a man. It felt like she was bearing her neck implication. Please may I try to kill the five girl in your stead. I am certain you are competent, but I need the exercise. The guard shrugged, tossed her the spear, and said, It's your funeral. All attention on the Mal, she snapped. I don't want that to reprobate along with them. He just laughed, so she held it out with her, safe outside. The Mal clung to the door, breaths already becoming labored. Through the gaps in the waving kelp, the sun's rays pierced her eyes, stealing what little acuity she had. Her thin veil did little to block the sun. It alternated between bright shock and a dim tangle of green. Lumen took a second to check her anat was secure on top of her head. The patterned cap, rich with hue and color, would ward off the spirits, surely thriving in such a disordered place. Hopefully it would stay affixed during her flight. She didn't want to add possession to her list of failings. A fire girl took a hesitant bite, wary of her bright scales. She jabbed it right where she hoped the heart was. Hopefully it perished quickly. She abhorred fighting defenseless things. If only the bands on her wrist were absent. This seemed to be a semicolon rather than a comma. She could have scorched the horde in an instant. She'd have gotten the mask in her haste. The man had locked the door, leaving her alone with the useless mouth. There were people all over, no talons or scales to speak of. She knocked. His voice was muffled through the carriage door, but still clear enough. I said, it's your funeral. Wouldn't you be killed if you let your precious prisoners die? Not if they die on their own volition. She cracked open the door while she still had the strength, ignoring the lances of pain shooting up her burnt hand. It jammed, stuck in a half-open position. They should be fine with the spare masks inside. The mouth bolted, small enough to fit inside the crack. They might have been safer here with a 5-gil. The first 5-gil had been easy enough to dispatch. The long, sinuous things fell in a single swipe, split open from dorsal fin to stomach. The strangle cap wound about her, impeding her motions. The water might as well have been thick mud for how difficult it was to navigate. The spear had caught another one. It fell to the ocean floor writhing, but the rest of the 5-gils circled around her, and the Ramagotti, and an uncountable swarm to her now wavering vision. The thin thorns through the kelp. They lunged, no longer hesitant, and took chunks of her flesh. The sharp pain stole the usual poise, and she frantically bat them away from her eyes. All that had taken chunks of her would die soon, but there was no way to tell the difference between them and the ones which still needed killing. The dead waters would sap her strength. She couldn't get all of them. They were trying to take bites out of the Ramagotti's eyes too. Blood whisked into the waters from her, from the Ramagotti, from the 5-gil. More beasts would come. Her gills were able to take in the wan water, half to clog with the strangled kelp's fronds. She bit through the kelp, tangling around her arms and lunged. The 5-gil's flesh and bones gave way with a satisfying crack. Another down. Her vision blurred further, and she lunged towards dull grey dots. Her gills heaved. The waters here were dead, utterly dead. She might find more lifeblood in the near void above. Her species still retained some ability to glean life from the empty, though deep water like her struggled. She surfaced to see if the void above would be more forgiving than the dead waters, but found only a beautiful sight. The waters rippled like cloth, lit by a haze of warm light. Beautiful, even though choked by a mass of strangled kelp. 5-gil nipped at her. She didn't care. She would have stared like a hatchling enraptured by the light for hours if the air could sustain her. Useless diversion. She sunk down. Most 5-gil she bit through when they drew near. She soon gave up after chasing them, trying to conserve as much of her energy as possible. Several of her fangs snapped or fell into the waters. They'd grow back. Her gills heaved in spasm when they took in too much kelp, and her vision blurred, sparks like festival lights shooting across her vision until all was a bright mass. Finally it was done. They were either off fleeing. She stilled, heaving in tons of water through spasming gills, and her vision slowly returned. The carriage remained trapped where it was left, the Ramagotti still tangled in the kelp. One had died, its mask dislodged. The other sported a bloody mass. For an eye, she uttered a prayer. The woman gave the Ramagotti a reassuring pet, then winced. She'd forgotten her skin was toxic to the beast. Sometimes she wished she was one of the more pathetic sentients. The beast had no blood memory, but she wished she could have given the fallen one a proper funeral. She didn't have enough strength to pack through the scale put into the heart. Luma knocked on the carriage door. She would likely die out here, sharing the same resting place as the beasts she'd seen on her journey. Not a bad place to die. I won, she wheezed. The guard opened the door on the opposite side of the carriage. She laughed, but some strange emotion rose in her. She wished the door had stayed shut. I wasn't paid enough to kill you. I'll just say you threatened me. For it's your reputation. You look a lot like my Ashla, you know. I'm glad you made it. She startled. You lost the weapon. The guard snapped a trace of humor in that imperious tone. That'll be added to your bill. I'll manage. I'm sure you will. Other than the guard, only the Mal remained. The cannibal had snuck outside during the fight, dead or dying in the lethal tangles of green. That wasn't part of the plan, he said. You almost did my job for me. I was going to put this in you. Have it. You might need it. He proffered a small needle attached to a green cylinder. She took it. Orakin were immune to most toxins, but some were strong enough even to down them. Ultimately, she had been saved by that man's kindness, not her own strength. He could have killed her while she slept, but he hadn't. It grated her. Mother's bribes were less bribes than more demands. He would likely be tortured for failure, and he knew it. It could simply be paranoia. It might not have even been Mother. She had plenty of others who were planning to kill her. Mother would have been more competent. It was someone else. Nisharai, most likely. Why didn't you kill me as I slept? You did my job for you. I couldn't let you die after that. I've been bit by them till it felt like my arm was about to fall off, got all infected. Nasty things they are. I'm glad you got them all. Clearly she wasn't receiving a proper answer. She laid down, closed her eyes, and tried to fall asleep. Now that the thrill of the fight had left, she was left alone with her wounds. Her hospital dress was a mess. The guard had given her a small analgesic, but it did nothing. She almost let out a whimper. The Mal no longer clung to her, likely put off by all the blood, and instead rocked back and forth for comfort. She hoped they wouldn't kill them. They reminded her too much of her sibling, especially in their earlier days. Mal were most commonly slaves, even though they had held great intelligence. It irked her. They were meant to deserve their fates, but she'd stopped believing in that ever since she'd met so many insufferable exalted. Caste only seemed to determine caste, nothing of your moral nature. Certainly, how you acted in your past life dictated how you were born, but the soul seemed to be wiped clean on rebirth like a clay tablet. And perhaps other species were incapable of fulfilling all the virtues as Morale had written, but they were competent enough. If she had met yet another self-proclaimed, supposedly all-superior Arakan woman of great virtue who couldn't do her job, she'd punch through a wall. They broke free of the strangle kelp, light glanced into her eyes. Clear of the strangle kelp, Kairos loomed ahead. A holy construction, all perfect accent spires, the city onto the city. She couldn't wait to live inside. The prime numbers of floors and a prime number of rooms would grant her luck, which she desperately needed. Roaming the elegant palace of ochre and white were acres of farmland. Green Fronticon and Hawaii rose high on the waters, much of the produce ferried inside to sustain the tens of thousands within. She would enter Kairos in debt. The cost of the damage artifact had stripped her of almost all belongings. It would take a few decades to remedy, if she got a decent paying job. In this state, she might not get one at all. Okay, so that's chapter 3, and my problem is that I've edited it already because it's draft 5 to the point where I don't know how to improve my writing any further. I don't know how to improve this chapter, and I know it's not perfect, but the problem is I don't see any problems with it. So I don't know how to make it better at this point, which is why I'm seeking out a developmental editor in the future. So I think I do see one way to improve it though, which is when she goes outside, she should smell the strangle kelp. Then struck a second, rich and alluring. That's exposition, I'll cut it. So much deeper than the withering matches used as perfume in Sanala. There we go. So that's unfortunately the only change that I can figure out currently, which does suck. Because I know this chapter needs changes. I just don't know how to fix the changes. I just don't quite know what to do. I think we can go back to chapter 2, because there's a note here, have Clampworth look outside of windows for a brief moment, also maybe describe the outfits with the eye patterns and how Clamp always feels watched. And then that's done, we added the tail snap from Clam, and we have renamed Center to something else. It is now Sanala. Alright, very good. And then we need to ensure the setting is clear now. Hold on a sec, that's Bob is you. Let's go to art. I think it might be in 2025. Wait, no, I think it might be here. Hold on a sec. This is Krita, it's another drawing program I use. There we go. So this is what I imagine House Kairos to look like, just a little bit. And so Clam would be traveling between one of the spires through one of these things here. But I'm a huge fan of how this looks like. And I really want to, when I make the comic for this story, I'm going to draw something like this for it. And because the patterns are repeating, I imagine I'll probably use a 3D model for this, and maybe use a filter on it to make it look like my art style, or just paint over it. I don't know exactly. So let's go back to chapter 2 now. And so we need to head to the point where she is swimming. Okay, so let's add it here. Okay. So she would have seen a window. No, she would have seen a window there, because if I add... I think she wouldn't even pause to look out of a window. No, that's redundant. Okay, there we go. Alright, do we head on to chapter 4? This one has also been edited quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste this particular chapter. It's pretty similar to the first one. Oops. Okay. Wait, let's indent this properly. Make it heading 2. Make it lobster font. Add a spacebar here. I think I need to describe the room more, because this, quickly skimming reading through this, I've just mentioned green tiles, but I haven't actually described what his room looks like. No, let's close this now. So I think I need to begin the scene. Oh, I have an idea. I know how to change chapter 2. I know how to change chapter 2. Because, if I control search for hammock. Oh no, it was blanket. Okay, there we go. Ah, I completely forgot about changing chapter 2. And then I also need to change this. Okay, there we go. So all I needed to do is he extended his hand towards her so she could speak. And then, oh, this is indented too much for whatever reason. Let me fix that. There we go. That's all good. And then let me add to edit, because we have not edited Warmham at all. Is there anything else that I need to change in chapter 2? Let's make sure the dialogue works. Because he can't be doing this and speaking to Clem. I need to ensure that. There we go. Oh wait, another instance of the wonky indents. I have no clue why this is happening. Oops. And then let's change year to your. Wait, another thing we need to do. Okay, excellent. So I've removed the rest of the phonetic dialogue. So what do I need to do next? Let me take a look at my editing notes again. Oh, it is now Sanala, not. So I did mention in Svelmore, in the third chapter rather. I need to change this to Times New Roman and up the size. Oh, hold on a sec. Another thing I need to do, since I renamed... I need to change all of this to Chetalur. Right, you've got this. Wait, where is it? Oh, wait, that's in chapter, I see. And there's another thing that I need to do, because how does Clam know about Chetalur if... Okay, let me reread this. Even though I need to rename the previous individual to Chetalur. Even though Chetalur quit his job as Dallas handler, he found a young but invalid, I quote, too much trouble. There we go. This fixes the issue in the rest of the chapter where Clam suddenly knows about Chetalur when she hasn't heard of his name before. There's so much to keep track of. So much to keep track of. Hopefully I've done a decent job. And alright, Right, we are doing really well here. And I wonder what I need to do next. Wait, does this times New Roman times x12? Okay, it is. It is the same font. I thought it looked different for some reason. So do I just edit chapter 4 now? I might do. Chapter 4, a warm hum. Or should I end the stream here since I've made good headway? No, I'll keep going. Chapter 4, a warm hum. Come to room 35 and if that's the arc to buy talon polished business silk and other amenities at a price that won't even be a skill off your back. Advert from the Lucky Fish, a weekly newsletter. Usually Clam would be fired or flogged for asking questions, but she had a sense of should soon smell it hadn't had that happen here. She could ask her child whatever she wished whenever he woke. He was her best chance of finding a Rakan weakness. She'd be fired soon, no doubt, perhaps paired with a crueler master, but if she had any chance, they were sure to come down with her. But Arakan were immune to most toxins, taking them as their own weapons. They'd hardened scales, and even a knife through the eye wasn't sure to take one of the bastards down with her. They had to have some weakness, and the child could be her key to learning one. She only hoped she'd have enough time to learn before being taken to someone cruel. Janara was still asleep in an awkward tangle. She hadn't the heart to move him. Half the blankets had fallen off as he'd slept. He had nightmares like she did, likely. Why did an exalted seem to carry a servant's fear? Chair alone must have something to do with it. She should be finding out how to kill beasts like him instead of worrying for his sanity, but she had to gain his trust first. He seemed clueless, but he was flighty. He could notice she wanted to kill an Arakan and report him. She'd have to take care. There was nothing to do here. Everything already clean from the patterned blankets to the wan lights overhead. She hated how well Arakan saw in the dimness. Rest of the species had to suffer just because their eyes might ache a little. Clam stood polishing the green tiles anyway, just in case someone entered. No need to get fired for seeming lax. Maybe there was something to do. She should fetch him food. Poor boy looked half dead. Hopefully he wouldn't wake to an empty room. Hopefully she'd return in time for him to not feel alone. Though maybe with how he'd been treated, said a comma, he'd feel safer alone. She asked nearby voices for directions to the nearest kitchens, and the Caledolus man took her for a short swim. Beautiful here, clean waters that felt fresh and soothing in her gills. No windows. Of course there were no windows in this current forsaken place, but it was bright enough to feel alive. They'd made their way to the kitchens. She thanked the voices who'd guided her and swam in. No one seemed to recognize her, but if they did, they didn't care to even look. She wasn't giving Janara any of that rotted meat they dared to called food. They instead packed him a platter full of sugary treats and sweetmeats, some Sam kelp too, all hearty stuff, just to get him fixed right up. On Aki Iridiri, she'd be meeting with that noble who'd assigned Janara to her, and they tell her about what food Janara really needed. Right now, what she was giving him was just a guess. Clam was tempted to nab one of the toxic Arakan foods and eat it herself. She shook her head. Her family needed her. Janara needed her. When she got back, he was still sleeping. She pulled the tangled blankets over him, but he soon fidgeted and they fell right off. She pulled them back again. Eventually, he stirred. He went over to a burnished gong shaped like the sun and muttered something far too quiet to hear. Gong reverberated with gentle hum that took an ache out of her bones, and he spoke unintelligibly with it, just as gentle. She was calmed by his swaying, much like the kelp she'd caught glimpses of. One time she'd been sent to someone in the gardens. Currents, she wished she could see that for the first time again. Janara struck the gong, felt the vibrations trace his senses, and reached into him like the sun. He entered Vashti, hummed and swayed, let the motion wash through him, and smiled despite winter's chill. Once I say my prayers, twice I laugh with glee, thrice I kiss the stars, for my hearts are free. Next, he was meant to say his gratitudes. Today, he whispered, I am grateful for many things. Oh, I need to change Zori to Che'Alor. I am safe from Che'Alor, and even though I am afraid and the world is confusing me as always, I think I am safe. No, he has a stutter, so I need to... He has a stutter, so I need to add that in. I have a new servant. Either they will take care of me or leave me alone. I think I am safe, but I hope they decide to leave me alone. He shuddered. I think they are scared of me for some reason. What did I do wrong? Shame filled him. This was a time meant for gratitude, and he was meant to finish his thanks before the gong stopped humming. It was quiet, barely audible now. I am worried they will always fear me or try to take good care of me wait, this needs to change. Hold on a sec. Like Che'Alor did, but today has been good. Yesterday, I mean. Thank you. The gong stopped humming moments later. Hopefully his good was good enough to set aside the stars. Una said they loved prayers. Moons, he had completely forgotten about his guest. Their blood beats were slow, but that didn't mean they were calm. Stone hearts were slower, even though they had just one. They could still be terrified. He planned what to say in advance, to ask how they slept and if they wanted to join him in prayer. Oh, something that I need to change is that... No. Actually, would it be an Orakan? Would the tapped language correspond to Orakan letters? I think it would. Meaning that Azrin would know that Clam is a woman because the Orakan first person pronouns are gendered. So you say a different sort of I if you're a man, a different sort of I if you're an Aldur, and a different sort of I if you're a woman. Okay, then I need to change the pronouns here. Here we go. Right. Okay. And then I need to remove the phonetic accent because Clam is typing out her letters. Oops. There we go. Okay. Almost removed all of that. Yawned, yawned, and AR. Okay, that's good. So you've removed all instances of that. Need to remove this because Azin would already know. I mean, Junara would already know. Alright, let's begin again from the start. I'll quickly skim read it so that I don't reread it again. I need to go to when they start talking. Alright. Okay, good. Alright, and then let me read out the chapter from beginning to end. Now that we've edited everything that needed editing. At least I hope so. Chapter 4, A Wormham. Come to room 35 in Athatsa Ark to buy talon polish, business silk, and other amenities at a price that won't even be a scale off your back. Added from the Lucky Fish, a weekly newsletter. Usually Clam would be fired or flogged for asking questions, but she had a sense Moons would sooner smile at her than have that happen here. She could ask the child whatever she wished whenever he woke. He was her best chance of finding a Arakan weakness. She to be fired soon, no doubt, perhaps paired with the Cruller Master, and if she had any chance, they were sure to come down with her. But Arakan were immune to most toxins, taking them as their own weapons. They'd hardened scales, and even an eye through the eye wasn't sure to take one of the bastards down with her. They had to have some weaknesses, and the child could be her key to learning one. She only hoped she'd have enough time to learn before being taken to someone cruel. Junara was still asleep in an awkward tangle. She hadn't the heart to move him. Half the blankets had fallen off as he'd slept. He had nightmares like she did, likely. Why did an exalted seem to carry a servant's fear? Chair alone must have something to do with it. She should be finding out how to kill beasts like him, instead of worrying for his sanity, but she had to gain his trust first. He seemed clueless, but he was flighty. He could notice she wanted to kill an Arakan and report him. She'd have to take care. There was nothing to do here, everything already clean, from the pattern of blankets to the wan lights overhead. She hated how well Arakan saw in the dimness. The rest of the species had to suffer just because their eyes might ache a little. Clam started polishing the green tiles anyway, just in case someone entered. No need to get fired for seeming lax. Maybe there was something to do. She should fetch him food. Poor boy looked half dead. Hopefully he wouldn't wake to an empty room. Hopefully she'd return in time for him not to feel alone. But maybe with how he'd been treated, he'd feel safer alone. She asked in nearby voices for directions to the nearest kitchens, and the Caladolet man took her for a short swim. Beautiful. Here? Clean waters that felt fresh and soothing in her gills. No windows. Of course there are no windows in this current's forsaken place, but it was bright enough to feel alive. They'd made their way to the kitchens. She'd thanked the voices who'd guided her and swum in. No one seemed to recognize her. If they did, they didn't care to even look. She wasn't giving Junara any of that rotted meat they dared to call food, and instead packed a platter full of sugary treats and sweetmeats, some pt2, all hearty stuff. Should get him fixed right up. On Ahi Iridiri, she'd be meeting with that noble who'd assigned Junara to her, and they'd tell her about what food Junara really needed. Right now, what she was giving him was just a guess. Clam was tempted to nab one of the toxic Arakan foods and eat it herself. She shook her head. Her family needed her. Junara needed her. When she got back, he was still sleeping. She pulled the tangled blankets over him, but he soon fidgeted and they fell right off. She pulled them back again. Eventually, he stirred. He went over to a burnished gong shaped like the sun and muttered something far too quiet to hear. The gong reverberated with a gentle hum that took an ache out of her bones, and he spoke unintelligibly with it, just as gentle. She was calmed by his swaying, much like the kelp she'd caught glimpses of. One time she'd been sent to someone in the gardens. Currents. She wished she could see that for the first time again. And then we're in Junara's perspective now, marked by this change. Junara struck the gong, felt the vibrations trace his senses and reach into him like the sun. He entered Vashti, hummed and swayed, let the motion rush through him, and smiled despite winter's chill. Once I say my prayers, twice I laugh with glee, thrice I kiss the stars, for my heart's so free. Next, he was meant to say his gratitudes. Today, he whispered, I am grateful for many things. I am safe from Chair Law, and even though I am afraid and the world is still confusing me as always, I think I am safe and happy. I have a new servant. Either she will take care of me or leave me alone. I think I am safe, but I hope she decides to leave me alone. He shuddered. I think she is scared of me for some reason. What did I do wrong? Shame filled him. This was a time meant for gratitude, and he was meant to finish his thanks before the gong stopped humming. It was quiet, barely audible now. I am worried she will always fear me or try to take good care of me like Chet Aloy did, but today has been good. Yesterday, I mean. Thank you. The gong stopped humming moments later. Hopefully it was good enough to set the stars. Una said they love praise. Moons, he had completely forgotten about his guest. Her blood beats were slow, but that didn't mean she was calm. Soren hearts were slower, even though they had just one. She could still be terrified. He planned what to say in advance, to ask how she slept and if she wanted to join him in prayer. Would you like to pray with me? I can start doing it again for you. No reply came except for a bunch of clicks and pops, so he held out his hand so she could speak properly. How would I go about it? How did you fare in sleep? I slept well. Thank you for the blankets. How can I pray with you? Oh, you start, but... Thank you. For what? For letting me pray. You'll have to be careful. I'll be hurt if I'm seen praying with you. What do we do? I can pray in the antechamber. You're meant to be in front of the gong. I don't mind. I think I need to make it clearer who's talking, because look at all this. It's just a whole bunch of talking without any... So I can say, the taps were light and careful, and the skin calloused. From calloused? Did I spell calloused right? I did not. Calloused. Got it? The taps were light and careful, and the skin on their fingertips rough and calloused. I slept well. Thank you for the blankets. How can I pray with you? Oh, you start me? Thank you. For what? For letting me pray. You'll have to be careful. I'll be hurt if I'm seen praying with you. What can we do? I can pray in the antechamber. You're meant to be in front of the gong. I don't mind. Okay, I'll strike the gong, then you say the prayers, and then you say your thanks for what you're grateful for until the gong stops singing. What are the prayers? He told Clam, and she saw him into the antechamber slowly, her movements barely disturbing the water. After she was settled and her heartbeat slowed further, he struck the gong. It was quiet, but he had a good hearing. He unraveled a few of her words. She thanked him for being a gracious diplomat, and he treated in pride. Her voice became low, even harder to unravel from the gentle murmur of the waters. I hope he won't turn on me, she'd said. Of course he wouldn't. He would be the best diplomat possible, just as great as Ahuna Vow the Munificent, and then she would stop fearing him, and he'd get good practice at making others feel safe and important. His mom had said that fear was a dangerous tool, and that making people feel important and at ease was the most influential thing you could do. Fear was the last resort. He hoped he wouldn't have to learn this skill, but if Clam reacted to him like that, it seemed he already had and just hadn't known it. After prayer, she insisted that he eat even though he felt sick. He threw up, but Clam wasn't mad at him. He cheated away from her, but she hadn't hit him. Instead, she just said, "Gods, what did they do to you?" and cleaned up. He didn't know what it meant, but it made him feel safe. Maybe he'd say it to someone else so they felt safe too. Halfway through mathematics, one of the diplomatic circle greeted him, Adunala. He recognized her by smell. She wore a rich, acrid perfume that almost smelled like sweet fermented meat. She took him by his arm, never trusting him to swim by himself, and spoke. "You are to welcome a disgraced member of the Kafits, Lumen Vaniaxe. I've told your teachers, and if you do well, they will increase your grade in behavior. She's to be settled into Etavam Ark, room 24. I trust you will find the way, dear." He'd wanted to ask if there was anything else important, but she'd already left. As always, she'd placed a privacy stick in his pocket. She always lamented about how little Ahuna fed him at meetings, even though Ahuna fed him lots whenever he got to talk to her. A servant came up to him, most likely surrounded by its lack of scent. He wouldn't know it was a servant. This would be someone. And then I need to explain why. Anything's disturbing the water. And it wouldn't be it would be there. Exalted Adunala requested I guide you home. How have the currents favored you? No need. She very forcefully requested I guide you home. Junara sighed and proffered his arm, hoping they would choose to guide him instead of carrying. I accept. They dragged him all the way back home, knocking him against a few walls. It wasn't the worst time he'd been guided. At least he could still swim for himself a little. Sometimes people tried to carry him. At least that was warm. Clam had found a grimy set of tools in the antechamber and spent the evening cleaning them and the rest of the room. Too soon, all her work was done. She'd taken special care with the gong, which looked to be an heirloom. It rested on a three-tiered plinth, gleaming in the wan light. I've overused this word, so let's gleaming in the gentle light. Let's replace one with gentle. Little indentations, places where touch had smoothed over the intricate metal, graced the middle. She put her hands onto the burnished markings, throat twitching. It reflected patches of light onto the tiled floor, a perfect place to prostrate herself. She hadn't seen any of her employers pray like this, and Junara was a diplomat, so maybe, just maybe, it could be a Surin ritual, something her ancestors would have done. She leant where Junara had been, and began. Once I say my prayers, twice I laugh with glee, thrice I kiss the stars, for my hearts are free. I am grateful for having a rest, she said, struggling to think of anything to say. Would whatever she was praying to be displeased, if it existed at all? She decided to repeat what she'd said that morning, even if it only stated itself. I'm singing it. I am grateful for being in the presence of someone kind, a great and gracious diplomat. She'd added that part just to make him happy, but it was only a half-lie. I have clean clothes and a warm bed, and I can ask for little else. I am satisfied here. I can only hope this will last, that he won't turn on me, but I believe I'll be taken long before he'll turn. I'll live in bliss for a time. Thank you, whoever I meant to be praying to. The gong stopped its hum, but she remained prostrate. She got up moments later in a start. Hope again had almost killed her. Someone could have seen her and known she wasn't cleaning. She'd have to busy herself with nonsensical work instead. There was so little to do in this place. It had been so long since she'd had any time to think. She longed to start embroidery again. If she stayed here long enough, would they let her embroider Junara's clothes? She could add all his favorite creatures once she got to know them. Did he like animals, or was he bored by them? She'd have to ask. A thought arrived so suddenly it felt like being slammed into a wall. Had a Surin servant ever tried raising an Arakan? Sure, he would tend to rot if he heard all the other vile things said about servants. They were animals in sentient bodies, that they were the foulest sinners put into this cast as repentance, fit to abuse because pain was absolution. But if she talked to him first and raised him with all the kindness she had, maybe he wouldn't turn. She wouldn't live long, old for a servant already, and she wouldn't get to take down a cruel master with her. If this was her plan, she might not have enough time to teach him, and she was only one voice amongst 1,000 cruel strident others. He seemed eager to please, eager to listen to his superiors. She knew how those ones turned out. It was likely hopeless, and as nice as it was, living with someone kind, she couldn't be selfish. She already had parents, and her fellows needed cruel masters dead. But that was no excuse to relax in her job. She'd take care of him as best she could, even if it was just for a month. Okay, we've gone through 3 chapters today, so that's very good progress. And none of them have required major editing. I don't think any of them require plot restructuring. Yeah, I don't think any of them require plot restructuring at all. Not at the start, because I'm not going for super high octane, constant going forward in the... I want it to be more slice of life, more of a character study. I do want there to be a plot, of course, but it's not the main focus for me. So we've made good progress. In 2 days we've gone through 4 chapters. Average of 2 chapters a day is pretty dang good, and then if I keep this up it will just be 1 month before I finish editing the book, which is going to be very good. And I will now run a poll. Or send a raid. No, I'll send a raid someone's way now, I think. Because I think we have finished this. I know, for the new people here, this is what Clam looks like. She's Surin, one of the species in my world. And Junara looks like this. He looks a lot more like a human. Well, only his tail and mouth look different. But Clam looks very different. Okay, I'm going to send a raid someone's way now. Who is streaming? Oh, Chaos Mark. Let's raid them. Raid Chaos Mark 2. Thank you so much everyone for hanging out. Thank you so much for lurking. Thanks for chatting. I hope you all have an absolutely splendid day. Goodbye.